Hello folks, welcome to another episode of the Riflechair channel. Today's episode is going to be dedicated to shooting rifles at various distances using open sights. Now there are lots of different rifles out there that have adjustable open sights. You can set their sights depending on what range from the target you're at. And my personal choice for this purpose is the number 4 Lee Enfield rifle. I believe it has a superior sighting system, especially with the vernier rear sights, because I can run what I refer to as a floating zero. Now I'm going to be showing you some of my notes here from what I mean by a floating zero. I'm going to be showing you some of the notes that I keep in my shooting book. This will be of interest to any Lee Enfield fan. I think you may get some use out of it. It may help you to establish some basic come-ups. And how I've basically set up my shooting book. And and this is my recommendation, is that every single rifle that you have that is amongst one of your favorite systems, I don't care what it is that you develop a shooting book that is dedicated solely to that rifle. Dedicated solely to that rifle. Don't have more than one caliber or rifle in this shooting book. Now the way I've got this set up is it's a forestry ducksback book. And I've made my notes on these on waterproof paper, because when you're out on the range, you're shooting at all different environmentals, weather conditions. And I'm using 100% pencil here on waterproof paper for that purpose. And so my notes have lasted years and years and years, because they don't get all, what happens to normal paper when it gets wet. It gets soft and it rips, and all of the pencil smudges. So use waterproof paper, little three-ring binder. It doesn't matter if you throw the book away when it's still wet. The notes are still going to be just fine. So the longevity of the quality of the notes, it needs to be on in this kind of format, because this is a very, very long-term kind of data building process that you're going through in order for you to understand how your rifle shoots. For the various different ammunitions that you're running through the rifle, you'll be establishing, when I say a floating zero, you'll be establishing a different zero at different ranges, depending on the type of lot of ammunition that you're running through it. So I've got this rifle is set up for, here I got kind of an indication for the front sights that we use, all the different front sight heights and indications that are imprinted on the front sights. 1 click equals 1.16 minutes of angle. That's been my rough calculation from shooting this rifle. However, just the different adjustments depending on which type of front sight you put into your rifle and how you calculate that. Because having this information, and when you're actually out in the field, having cheat sheets, just put it this way, there's no such thing as cheating, right? Having good detailed notes is simply smart. And I find that usually when it comes to the front sights, I'm helping other people rather than myself, because I'm pretty much already set up. I've got this rifle zeroed. And when I say I've got a floating zero, it's because I'm running different ammunition types through this rifle. And I may be going to different competitions and shooting different ammunition types and so on. So you're going to have a different calibration set up for each. I should say a firing solution set up on your rear sight, depending on the type of ammunition that you're running. And the last time I was running this rifle, I was running soft point, and I basically got my basic come-ups printed on the rifle here, because you don't always necessarily have your shooting book with you at all times. And so that may be an option for you, is just get a piece of paper and a piece of shipping or crate tape and tape it to your rifle so you've got your come-ups. So here, and I'll take a picture of this piece of paper here, and I'll pose it over the film here, is basically zeroing with the same ammunition type, but from an imperial range, and then also on a metric range, because you're not going to be using the sight systems, the same sight firing formula on your rear sight if you're going from an imperial range to a metric range. Right, so because the targets are not at the same spacing as they were before, right? So you're going to have another custom setting depending on the type of range that you're on. Here we have this here is the type of target that we have on this in this book. This here is called a figure 1259, and it's on a 4-foot frame. It's a different, and this particular sheet here is in yards. So for this rifle, shooting soft point ammunition on a range that is imperial in yards, you know, from the very, very bottom, I'm up 3 clicks to my 100 meter, or I should say 100 yard zero. I'm up 6 clicks for the 200. I'm up an additional, whoops, no, sorry. These are just me making sighting adjustments and so on. But I'll give you the come ups in a different thing. But one of the things that you can pay attention to here is your physical condition. Like, for example, here in this particular day on the 26th of May in Nanaimo, it was hot. I mean, it was seriously hot. And a lot of us were sunburnt, we were dehydrated. We've been doing this for a while, and by around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, headaches started to set in. And when you're shooting and you got a headache, trust me, it's not a lot of fun. And so I'll even know when and at what time I took a painkiller, like an extra strength Tylenol or something like that, right? And then so I took a headache, have a tension headache, got a painkiller at 200 yards, and by the time I got to 300 yards, the painkiller was starting to take effect. Boy, man, the reason why I'm in the barn today is because it is about 40 degrees Celsius outside. It is hot. I'm just sitting here sweating. This is already my second set of clothes today. I swamped the other one. So you're making all kinds of notes in your shooting book. I'm making note of where my front post is in relation to the target. So for example, here at 200 yards, I've got my front, I'll take this down here, this figure 12. On this 4-foot frame at 200 yards on this day, I had my front post here because I could see that at 200 yards. And my point of impact is 10 inches higher than my point of aim on that day. Especially when it's a really hot day, you're getting a lot of mirage off the ground. Trying to find the center of a target as it's waving back and forth is near impossible. But you kind of find the point that's in between the different shifts from left to right, and you can definitely at 200 yards see the bottom, the 6 o'clock position of this target. So you aim what you can actually see in order for you to hit the target. And in this case, I had a lot of clicks, boom, way up from where I normally was, because you know, where your point of aim is not necessarily where your point of impact is, right? And in this case, I had it lifted about 10 inches. So this here was 12 clicks up, even though we're only at 200 yards. This is shooting in the prone and supported. This here is a group that I shot off bags quite a while ago. This is 300 meters with this rifle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one group. That's pretty good. I'm not quite sure what this one here was, but okay. And all the while I'm doing this, I'm recording every single shot using an optic. When that target comes back up and the bullet strike is indicated on the target, it gets a little black pencil mark where that bullet strike is, so I can see where my grouping is, and I'm just slowly building my database up, right, for this rifle. Eventually, what you do is you establish your come-ups, right, from all the way from zero all the way up to around 500 meters. You're establishing your zeros at all those different ranges, and you're writing it down. You're making a summary of your data logbook, and ultimately, if you want, you can tape it to your rifle. But ultimately, what you should be doing is memorizing it. You memorize it, because when you're service rifle shooting, as you do shoot at these kinds of targets and service rifle shooting, you are under a fair amount of stress, depending on where your comfort levels are. I mean, if your comfort levels are low, your stress is going to be high. If your comfort levels are high, your stresses are going to be low. So, depending on where you are in your threshold of those things, you may or may not be able to remember accurately and make adjustments on the fly to your sighting system as you're physically and mentally expending yourself. Right? The more and the longer on in the day, the more tired you become, and the more difficult sometimes to pay attention to detail it is for you. So, just food for thought. I mean, this is for a shooting book here. It is absolutely critical for my marksmanship development is to have this aid dedicated to this rifle for this specific purpose, for this specific rifle, for a specific type of ammunition types, to have these records. And generally you can see what you're able to do, what you're able to achieve at distance. So for example, here's one target. I've got 4 rounds inside of the inner here, and I've got one that's landed just out here. This is at 500 yards, prone unsupported. That's pretty good. I mean, who said that these old girls can't shoot? Right? Just because you couldn't make a shoot doesn't mean it's the rifle's fault. And this is a rifle that has seen a lot of ammunition. So here's another one. I'm making also notes on things like whether I'm using a sling or not. And I know that I am, because that's just my shooting style. I will help to stabilize the rifle utilizing a sling. And in this one here, in this particular, this was a different practice, using a sling, making a note of the type of ammunition I'm shooting, which is ball 175 grain Mark 8Z ammunition. And you know, what the shooting position is, the shooting method that I'm using. And here's one prone unsupported on a figure, I think it's a figure 11, which is the full 4-foot target, skinny guy. Crazy Ivan, as we call him. We call this guy Prick on a Stick. Anyway, so 10 rounds inside of 4 inches, prone unsupported. Total of a 46.2 out of a possible 50. 10, so not fantastic, but not bad. Here's another one at 100 meters, which is 49.3 out of 50, which is sitting unsupported, for another 4.5-inch group, but slightly positioned differently. So it's an interesting observation to make. All the way out down to standing, a 50-meter snap. You know, so you get a target exposure of 3 seconds. You're in the low ready position, right? You're cocked. Safety might be on it. For this surface rifle shooting, you don't necessarily need it. But when I'm in that position, I've actually got my cheek well down like that, but my gaze is up at where the targets are going to be. Right? I have my eyes on the target at all time, even though my rifle is down. Okay, and when it's target up, I'm in alignment. Right? I don't have my head in alignment with the target. I have my head in alignment with the rifle, but my eyes are up when shooting like that. Excuse me while I sweat all over my rifle. And interesting thing, people that run painted stocks and stuff like that, or they got some kind of an enamel finish on their stock or their wood, when you got bug dope all over your face and you're sweating, it makes a mess of your rifle and your face as it slowly adheres to your face. Makes a mess of your rifle too. Anyway, just food for thought. Here's one. This is a walk back with this rifle number 647 at BCRA, June 2013. Make a note of the rifle, make a note of where you are, make a note of what distance you are, what your sight setting is for each of these different ranges, and what position you're in. And I'm actually drawing my front sight on the target. I should say in my notebook. I'm drawing where my front sight is. Because when you're running a rifle like this, especially at the 400 to 500 meters, you're going to have to aim off. If you've got a full factor wind coming from right to left, and you're in alignment with your target. There's one target here I'll show you where my front sight is actually here. Okay, so your front sight at 500 meters, pretty much, not quite, but almost takes up most of this 1259. Pretty much your front sight is about as wide as this target is. Certainly at 400 meters, 500 meters is a little bit bigger. But I'll make a note of where my front sight is in relation to the target, and you know, judging from the distance to target and the strength of the winds from where your position is, you may or may not have flags. You are going to have to aim off because you're going to get bullet drift before it hits your V-bull, because we're all going to shoot V-bulls all the time. And of course, that on that particular day, those sight settings will be different than probably the day before, because you're shooting in different environmentals, you're shooting in different humidity, there's more or less drag on the bullet depending on how much humidity there is. So each day you're shooting, you're making notes on the environmentals, you're including it in your data set, and you're developing one hell of firing formula based on environmentals for this rifle. Do this for at least one rifle in your collection. If you have the opportunity to go out and shoot at these types of ranges or these types of distances, it's just a fantastic thing to do for yourself. Definitely make note of the ammunition type. Here we have another one here at Chilliwack. It's at General Vokes Range. This is a 500 meter walk back. And in this one I'm running 180 grain soft points around those bullets. So they fly different, way different than a full metal jacket bow tail. But surprisingly well, again, here's another one. It's I think it's really interesting to see that. Highly recommend that you build yourself a little book like that pretty much goes with the rifle wherever it goes. And let me tell you, if you ever make a wrong decision to sell that rifle, the fact that you've built a repository of information like this with, you know, different loads, different ammunition that goes along with the rifle, that is worth something to a prospective buyer that is interested in purchasing your rifle. For them to be able to have a data set, sure, I mean, they're going to be shooting the rifle differently, they're going to have different eyes, they're going to have a different hold, they're going to have a different everything. But it's an incredible little piece of information that could go along with the rifle, and may actually make you some money in the long run, just by keeping those kinds of records. Hopefully that was useful for you. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. There always is. It's such a huge subject, isn't it? But those are some I would call them basic criteria for building your data set. It will look different than mine, but you know, in the end, it's going to benefit you in the long run, and it takes a lot of guesswork out of the system. There was one situation, it was very interesting, where it was pouring rain, and we're shooting at 200 meters on a 4-foot frame. And we're just establishing a zero for that day. But that morning, all of our rifles were totally saturated with rain. It was driving sideways rain. Really difficult to see the targets. You know, the haze of the rain coming down. And everybody's first volley landed high. It was high on the targets, because the rifles were filled with water. And when you got a tighter when you've got all the spaces in your chamber are compromised with water, it's a tighter chamber, so their velocities were higher. They imprinted high on the target. People started right there off the bat. In my peripheral vision, I could see people making their sight adjustments and bringing their setting down. And of course, on the second sighting shot, they were hitting dirt in front of the mound on that target, spraying the area with dirt, because their sights were set too low now. They essentially unfouled their rifle and made the mistake of setting their sights low. Now, I knew enough about shooting to know what was going on, so I made absolutely no adjustments to my sight, and I was VBOL, bang, 200 meters, and at that point in time, everybody around me was starting to lose the mental game, because now they were so confused. They had totally screwed up all their practice and all of their firing solutions, because they did not take into consideration that one thing. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Riflechair signing off, and as always, Maple Leaf up.